Thank you for the privilege of being here today in this wonderful weather in February that allows us to be out and to enjoy our time together. We thank you for the food today and for those who prepared it and made the nourishment to us and give us the opportunity to accomplish our purposes for the day. As Rotarians, help us to be exemplary people. Help us to live the four-way test in such a way as we honor each other with our time and with our presence, and we give our community that which is a good representation of what a good Rotarian ought to be. We thank you for this time. We thank you for our members who are here today and for our guests. And we'll give praise to you for all that you are doing in our lives. And all of God's people said, amen. Thank you, and be seated, please. We're so delighted you've chosen to join us today for the Rotary Club of Tyler's Thursday meeting. And we would like to acknowledge our guests today. So, starting at the back table, do we have any guests today? All right, here in the middle section, do we have any guests today? I think we have several. Can you please stand and share with us, please?
I'm Adeline Denzel. I'm a member of the top lady of the station. We have 5 main thrusts. The main thrust is our team. We must have a chapter of top teams in order to have a chapter of top ladies. And the organization was founded by Lady Bird Johnson back in 1963. By contacting a young lady politics known by Mrs. Willie Glenn. And I'm really very thankful. And if you'd like to hear more about me, this is how you get the property after me. So much for being here today.
Sure.
I'm Darrell L. Davis of Continuing Faith in Christ Ministries. We also have a youth foundation organization called Unlock Potential. We give kids backpacks and school supplies, a bicycle. We want to take at least 8 kids to offer to the Texas 89 legislature during the March spring break to introduce them to the legislative process of how bills are authored and passed and work, and let them meet who our new state representative is. And also our state senator, Brian Hughes, Matt Shaker was a good friend of mine, and he helped me do a lot in the capital, and I want to expose others to that. So we planned a trip for some youth in March the 19th and 20th. Thank y'all for allowing me to come today.
Clarence, are you going to say anything or just sit there?
I think follow that.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you anyway, Clarence. Thank you so much. If you would like your picture taken, the guy does a good job with that, by the way. Just FYI. All right. Any other guests over here in the middle? Out on the area on the other side over there, do we have any guests with us today? How about visiting Rotarians? Do we have any visiting Rotarians with us today? Well, thank you so much for being here. We're so delighted that you've chosen to be with us today, Mr. President.
Thank you, David. Glad to have all the guests today. Glad to see some friendly Rotarian faces as well joining us back.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Our favorite parts of the program, This Week in History, Paul Weiser.
Thank you, Colby. Today, on the 6th of February in 1952, after a long illness, King George VI of Great Britain died in his sleep. His daughter Elizabeth ascended the throne at the age of just 27. She reigned for 70 years, 214 days, making her the longest reigning monarch in British history and the second longest reigning monarch overall, behind Louis XIV of France. On the 7th of February 1964, that'll be tomorrow, we'll mark the day that the Beatles arrived at New York's JFK Airport, aboard Pan Am flight number 101 from London. I Want to Hold Your Hand had hit number 1 on the U.S. charts just 6 days earlier. The crowd at JFK had to be controlled by police. 2 days later, the Beatles made their debut on the Ed Sullivan Show on the CBS television network. On the 8th of February, 1943, after an engagement that began on August 7th of the previous year, and at the cost of over 10,000 American casualties, The Japanese departed Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands, putting that strategic airfield in America's hands. On the 9th of February 1965, President Lyndon Johnson ordered a U.S. Marine Air Hawk Missile Defense Battalion to South Vietnam, marking the first commitment of combat troops to what would become the Vietnam War. On the 10th of February 1942, Glenn Miller received the first ever gold record, the Recording Industry Association of America, for selling 1 million copies of...
Who likes serenade?
I wish it's my favorite Glenn Miller, but that's not it.
In the mood.
Not in the mood.
This is just again, begin to begin.
No, that's already Shaw.
Okay, I'm still.
Yes. No, I don't. Chattanooga Choo Choo. The first ever gold record, Chattanooga Choo Choo. On the 11th of February 1979, the Ayatollah Khomeini seized control of the government of Iran. By November, 52 American diplomatic personnel will be taken hostage and held for 444 days. And finally, we'll mark on Wednesday, the 12th of February 1999, with 10 Republicans joining 45 Democrats, the Senate voted to acquit President Bill Clinton on 2 articles of impeachment. Birthdays in the coming week, starting tomorrow, Garth Brooks turns 63. Actor and very funny guy Joe Pesci turns 82 on Sunday. Carole King, also on Sunday, turns 83. Actor, it's getting worse. Actor Robert Wagner turns 95 on Monday. And finally, from Gilligan's Island. First of all, guys, Ginger or Mary Ann?
Mary.
Me too. But Ginger, Tina Louise, turns 91. I'll get them gals too, I don't care. Tina Louise turns 91 on Wednesday, and that's this week in history.
Thank you, Paul. And now we'll move on to Rotary business. We did have one of our members from Champions for Children. The event is this Saturday. She is selling raffle tickets for Stock the Bar, which is a wagon with of either liquor or wine. And they do have $1,700 worth of items. So if you are interested in raffle tickets, there is a QR code, I think, out front. Or if you have any questions about the event, Andrea can help you out with that. How much is the ticket? It is $25 a ticket for 5 or 100.
And I have the tickets here, so you can come see me and I'll get you fixed up.
If you are interested, see it. Perfect. And now, next week, our RILA students will be here to share their experience. We are looking for sponsors for their family members for their lunch. So if you are interested in sponsoring a meal for our guests, please let Holly know, and this will be for next week's meeting. A reminder, bring your grocery bags. I did see we had a bunch out front. I know that the East Texas Food Bank Mobile Pantry is very appreciative of those grocery sacks, and they do use them all every single week. So thank y'all for bringing those grocery bags, and please bring them next week. Also, January volunteer hours. If you have any volunteer hours, doesn't matter what you volunteer with or who you volunteer with, we do collect those hours and they do help the club. So if you have any volunteer hours, please email those to Holly. Program for February 13th is the RILA students. They will be back next week. Their family members will be with them. Their counselors will be with them. So please be here to hear them talk about their experience of camp. And the camp is going on this weekend. We are driving them tomorrow, and we'll be bringing them back Sunday, so it will be fresh on their minds. So please be sure to be here for next week's meeting. And now, to introduce our speaker for today, I'll call up President-elect Bill Kroon.
And by the way, it's never too early to put on your calendar the next 5 o'clock somewhere. It's February 25th at Hobbs. Okay, good afternoon, members of the Rotary Club Tyler. Kathy Rife is the current board member for NAMI Tyler. It's a National Alliance on Mental Illness. She's been working with NAMI for 6 years. My involvement started when I took the free family-to-family class, and it changed everything I thought I knew about mental health. Prior to this, I spent 25 years in private practice as a podiatrist in Trenton, Tennessee, graduating from the William Schroll College of Podiatric Medicine in Chicago in 1989. My undergraduate degree is from the University of Houston College of Pharmacy in 1981. She worked as a registered pharmacist from 1981 to 1989. After retirement, I moved back to East Texas, where most of her family lives. She was raised in Chicago, but calls Texas her home. So let's welcome Kathy Riffe.
Right.
Welcome, Kathy. Thank you. Give me a minute. I'm getting over some hips and knees. Thank you. Thank you for letting me come and speak to you today.
Now, there you go.
So I just want to say hello, I'm Kathy Riffe, current board president of the National Alliance. Maybe that's my point. Anyway, I've been with NAMI Tyler for a while. The reason I want to let you know a little bit about me, I am a retired podiatrist and a pharmacist. I graduated in the top of my class. I had a very active, busy life. Moved to Tyler 9 years ago, have lots of family here. And I got involved with NAMI in 2018 when I took a class called Family to Family. Now, NAMI was unknown to me, but mental illness wasn't. The reason I tell you things about myself is to let you know I'm like everybody else. I lived, I worked, I did everything that I thought I was supposed to do, but that doesn't exempt you from having mental illness. And I have mental illness. I have major depressive disorder. And a lot of people struggle with different things, but it's not really talked about. Now, he opened my eyes to what this exactly means. But that wasn't actually the start of my story. My story started with my son. I have a son who also has mental illness. But I say that because it's okay to not be okay. I'm in good company. Theodore Roosevelt, James Taylor, Winston Churchill, and Patty Duke all suffered from bipolar disorder. And a lot of these things are becoming more in the forefront because of individuals that are openly talking about this. People that have had major depression disorder include Dick Clark, Michael Phelps, Cole Porter, Terry Bradshaw, Charles Schultz, Harrison Ford, just to name a few. So what is NAMI exactly? It's the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for the millions of Americans that suffer with mental illness. We do advocacy, we do services, and we work on understanding treatment, we support research, and we're steadfast in our commitment to raising awareness and building a community of hope for those in need. NAMI was started in 1979 by two women, Harriet Shelter and Beverly Young of Madison, Wisconsin. They both had sons with schizophrenic disorder, and they were very distraught by the fact that there were not enough services or information, especially through the family members. The people that have mental illness are given lots of resources and things for them, but the family is left out in the cold. So they developed a network of people that helped each other. We had questions. We wanted to know about the illness that we either had or our loved one had. We had fears, we had concerns. NAMI promises to build a better life for millions of Americans. It started by these two women, and it has now grown to 1,000 state and local affiliates. It's represented in every state, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. I need some water. You dry mouth. We'll grab that. Is it safe?
We hope.
I haven't done it.
That's not good. Because mental illness is in the forefront, it's in the TV commercials, it's on movies, it's on television programs. Yet nobody wants to talk about it on an individual level. At least 1 in 4 adults and 10 children, 1 in 10 children, or 60 million Americans, are affected by this disease. How many people here have been affected by cancer in one way or another? Yeah. How many people have been affected by a disaster, a natural problem that just took over your life? But how many people have been affected by mental illness? Nobody wants to raise their hand. Oh, the ones that did, I'm so proud of you. And I'm sure you're like everybody else, you have questions. The thousands of members that we have now are the face and voice of NAMI. The movement has come from being these two women in somebody's kitchen that now does a lot of advocacy work. If you can remember back in the 1970s, I can. My son was diagnosed in the 80s with his mental illness. And it wasn't even covered on insurance. It was ridered out like pregnancy or like dental care, and that was just not right. So they advocate things like that, and for inclusion in education. Our work started through giving classes and support groups. The first signature NAMI class was called Family to Family, and that's what I took. My son is bipolar, obsessive compulsive, panic disorder, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and substance abuse disorder. Many people that have mental illness self-medicate, which fogs the issue. So this signature class was written by Joyce Berlin in 1979. It's offered in 49 states, Canada, Italy, and Mexico, and has graduated 300,000 people. So it's touched a lot of lives. There's 3,500 certified trainers, all with personal connection, and I'm one of them. Once I took the class and I went, wow, this is great. I want to share this with other people. I became a leader, and then I became a state trainer, and now I'm training other trainers to get the word out. Besides the family-to-family class, we also have NAMI on campus, which is for high school and college people. We have Homefront for families dealing with veterans that have PTSD. And in the youth and veterans, suicides have gone up, mental illness has gone up. COVID has caused a lot of people to express mental illness symptoms that they hadn't been before because of the isolation and the stress. We also have peer-to-peer, which is for individuals that have mental illness. All these things are free of charge. We have NAMI Profession, which is for physicians and nurses and social workers that think they have a handle on mental illness, but they don't. I thought I had a handle on mental illness. I was a professional. People came to me for answers. Yet in my family, I had no answers. It's a whole different story when it affects you. It's real easy to say, well, you should have, or you could have, or why didn't you? But that's just not how it goes. Tyler NAMI started in 2012. So it's been here 12 years, and I call it Tyler's best kept secret. Because a lot of people have not even heard of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, even though it's a nationwide grassroots organization. It's mostly run by volunteers, and all the people that teach the classes and run the support groups are personally affected. And that's why it's called a peer organization. I've lived through what you're living through. Now, why is mental illness still in the background? Because of stigma. People don't want to talk about it. We all suffer guilt, shame, and fear. We don't know what our outcomes are going to be or how our lives are going to be different. I took a person that I could no longer communicate with, that I wish was not even in my life, called my son, who is now 30 years old and stable and very successful and working and living on his own, who had multiple hospitalizations and multiple issues and arrests. The story goes on. But because NAMI helped me learn to build the relationship with him, it changed a lot of things. I could be more supportive to him. We didn't talk anymore. We shouted. I walked on eggshells every day. He blamed me for everything that was wrong in his life. And through this whole picture, I had to finally understand that I was part of the problem, but I needed to learn to be part of the solution. I let go of my own guilt. Mental illness is not a choice, but recovery can be a choice. Medication works. Education helps. If you rebuild families and rebuild relationships, you keep people off the streets. You keep people out of jail. You keep them in their homes. And this doesn't matter whether it's your child or whether it's your spouse or whether you're a parent. And when we talk about mental illness, we talk about, that could be anything from Asperger's, which is an autistic problem, to profound schizophrenia, where people are not even in a place of recognition that they're even sick. And that's another problem with mental illness, and that's why so many don't seek help. I didn't think I had a problem. It was everybody else. My son didn't think he had a problem. It was everybody else. But then when I started talking to him and gaining empathy with him and be supportive of him, things changed. And it was great. The non-economic class deals with how the brain works. You know, most of what we know about the brain has just come out in the last 20 years. You can't dissect a person's brain until they're gone. And then it's too late. It's one of the organs that also works. Millions and millions of these neurons are functioning every day, and yet we don't understand it. So it teaches about the brain. It teaches about medication. It teaches about communication skills. It teaches about resources that are available for everybody. Some of the principles of the family support class, and everything we do is at no charge to the people. Everything we do is confidential. So we would like people to come and join our movement. Besides the people that are involved and members of NAMI and reach out, we also like volunteers. I hear you guys need volunteer hours. So they can always use people to do some stuff. And through our supporters, we have managed to train several people to be leaders. But at NAMI Tyler, I've taught over 300 people in my family class over the last 5 years. Hundreds of people over the last few years that come to our support groups. We've just been able to move into a different office in a better location. So these are all things because of the support of the community, and we appreciate that. We have several fundraising things going on. Our family-to-family class is free. It's not a fundraiser, and it starts Monday at the Glenwood Church of Christ. It's open to anybody, you just have to register. If you are dealing with a loved one that you don't understand, whether it's with dementia, whether it's with schizophrenia, whether it's with just mood swings, we're your people. The basic focus of the family-to-family class is that people with mental illness are people. They're not an illness. And also we try to get the focus off of the individual. It's not just an individual disease, it's a family disease. It tears families apart. It causes them not to speak. I have 2 children, and I never understood what all this was doing to my other child. And for years, the 2 of them never spoke, now that they're both adults. And slowly we're rebuilding that relationship. We encourage families to start to be self-focused. You got to take care of you before you can take care of somebody else. And it's okay. It's not a bad thing to put you first so you can take care of other things in your life. We think expression, anger, and grief is part of self-care. Nobody likes this happening to them. And it's okay to tell other people. People don't want to tell their preacher. They don't want to tell their uncle. They don't want to tell their neighbors. So who do they tell? A room full of people who lived your experience. We teach that empathy is a means of gaining acceptance to the loss. Because we are family members, we help each other let go. I let go of the fact that I couldn't fix him, but now I love him for who he is instead of for who I thought he should be. And then when they change and you want to know when are they going to be normal again, they may never be the same person that you had before, and you grieve and you lose something that you used to have, but that hasn't changed the person you love, and you want to keep that relationship. You can't know what no one's told you, so don't feel bad about it. Remember, you're the expert about your own feelings and your own experience. And NAMI is a partner in your learning. We're very busy before the family-to-family class is going on. We also have support groups on the 4th Tuesday of every month at Shiloh Road Church of Christ. No registration, no fees, nothing, just show up. And you'll be there with other family members, and you'll be there. There's also a group that does support for the individuals with the mental illness, because they don't have anybody to talk to either. They can't go home or go to school, go to work, and say, oh, how are you doing today? We all say, fine, everything's great. But you don't want to say, oh, it's terrible, I cried all night last night, yada, yada, yada. They just don't want to hear it, so this is someplace you can go. We have a games day. Our games day is May 6th, and it's here at Holly Tree Country Club. It's great. It's a bunch of people that get together and play bridge and mahjong and 5 crown and dominoes, and just whatever you want to do. There's information about that in the back. This is our first year for doing a NAMI walk. We're going to look for sponsors for that, and it's to increase awareness within the community. That's October 4th, and the theme of the walk is I am, you are, we are, NAMI walks. And October 4th is National Day of Hope. Our belief system is pretty simple. We stay on top of the resources that you might need. We have no magic formulas. We use empathy as a doorway to understanding. We emphasize the universal aspects of mental illness. Medication works and support helps. You know that Smith County is #1 in the state for the suicide rate in Texas. That's a pretty disturbing fact. So you know that the problem is out. Nationally, 17 out of 100,000 individuals commit suicide. No, it's 14 out of 100,000 people commit suicide nationally. 17 out of 100,000 commit suicide in Texas, and East Texas in particular. We're vigilant guilt busters, and we want you to know that we're here for you. Our office receives 100 to 300 calls a year asking for resources, asking for information, asking for direction. And there are great organizations in this county. Andrew Center is where everybody thinks about mental illness. It's a 4-month waiting list to get an appointment. UT North, where everyone else thinks is a greater place to go. To get an appointment there, it's an 8-month waiting list. And most of those have to be referred by a doctor. So you got to get somebody to go to the doctor to be referred to psychiatric care. So something's wrong with the system, and we're here to fill in the gap. So that's about all I wanted to say. The pamphlets, brochure on family is back there. Support group information is there. We have speakers. This month, our speaker is Therapets. They're going to come and talk to us about their little pets and how they do therapy. We had an attorney last month who talked about guardianship, which is a big question, especially for loved ones with older individuals that can no longer take care of themselves, or for children. We have some people out there that are nonverbal for no reason other than they have mental illness, and they're trying to figure out how to get their lives back to order. Here's our Games Day brochure, and then something about helping a friend. If you see somebody that's in distress or just doesn't seem to be acting the way they used to act, just ask them if everything is okay and let them know that you're there for them. And now with that, I guess I'm here to entertain questions.
I'd like to ask one.
Yes,
You
sir.
said that Smith County is the highest county in the state for suicides. I realize this is a very difficult question and one it's hard to put your finger on. But does anybody have any idea as to why that is the case?
I don't know why that's the
Can
case.
you repeat the question?
The question was, why is Smith County suicide rate so high?
Because our county homes so many veterans. I mean, we're one of the largest counties that houses so many veterans. Veterans.
Veterans. Well, there you go. The suicide rate among veterans is up. Suicide rate of the young children are up. Whether that's social media, whether it's the economic condition of the county, but I don't have an answer to that. I know we're a very populated area, even though we don't get credit for it. Yes.
A large percentage of the people in our local jail have mental illness, but we don't have the facility, so they wind up in jail. Does your organization work with any of those that are incarcerated?
Our organization doesn't work specifically with them, but we have been involved with the jail diversion project when the grant money was there to help people out of jail. It's a tough revolving door situation, and a lot of them end up in jail for simple reasons like trespassing or vandalism or domestic assault. If a son hits a father, it's domestic assault and they go to jail. And we try to lower those numbers by saying, look, if this crisis in your home escalates to that point, that is not the first solution. But you're right. almost 25% of the prisoners in Texas are mental health patients. I will say the county commission and Andrews Center and several other people are working on that issue. They're trying to reopen BHC. And even with that, that helps the individual. But what about the family? You know, it's terrifying to have your son in jail and not be able to get them out. Or there's not a bed. They've been in jail for a month. They've been deemed unfit to stand trial. But it's a 330-day waiting list for the nearest state bed. And that's terrible. Yeah, I had a question in the back.
Yes, Kathy, first of all, I'd like to give kudos to NAMI because I went through the individual course a couple of years ago. I have an adult daughter who is mentally challenged, mentally ill. She has been diagnosed with the spectrum from bipolar personality disorder and extreme severe depression. And so I know that for most of her childhood, it was obvious that she was different, that there was an issue. She was never diagnosed. She was 18 when she tried to commit suicide. And over an argument that she and I had about a long-distance telephone bill. And just recently, after she was arrested 3 years ago, did all of these diagnoses really come to light. And so we lived through her lifespan of ignorance and trying to deal with a personality that nobody in the family understood and most people wouldn't tolerate. And so the enlightenment and education I got for the free course that y'all taught that I had, it literally changed my life, and it certainly changed my relationship with her. And I've learned so much since then about all of the profound, horrible effects of mental illness and, the tremendous population of homeless people who are really my daughter without a parent who can take care of her. And it seems so desperate. And I just wonder, you would have to have more information about it than I've ever been able to find, but what is the federal government doing about the mental illness crisis that we're suffering in America?
It's a good question. They're making a lot of noise, but I'm really not sure that a whole lot is being accomplished because a lot of people with mental illness don't have a voice. And in the time of budget cuts and restructuring, people that can't speak for themselves quite often get cut. So, yeah, they're putting money into the behavior health center, but it's still only going to house maybe 10 or 12 people. But as far as our government, I don't know, what they're doing. Gamut goes from bulldozing over 10 cities, thinking these people are just going to disappear and it won't be their problem anymore, to very proactive groups that actually try to get people off the street. But I don't know. Yes.
What are your thoughts, talking about people on the street? Back when I was growing up, there was always the Terrell State Mental Hospital. We all knew that. We also knew that there were homes that families with people with mental illness would be sent to. Well, sometime in the 70s and 80s, 90s, these homes were closed. And these people, that's the reason they're out on the streets. What are your thoughts about having these homes again, where they can get treatment, and they're in a safe atmosphere? I don't know if that could ever happen.
I don't know. The institutions of the 60s and 70s, some of them were criminal in their treatment of the people that were in there. The thought was that if you could get somebody out of a home and socialized, there would be improvement. There was a big pushback on that. But anyway, They did start bringing back group homes and things like that, but to give you an example of the lack of acceptance by society, I have a family member that works for a city in another state, and they just bought a building in order to house homeless people, to transition them from being homeless to being stable and living in a nice environment and hopefully getting them an education and a job. And it was gonna house like 120 people, and they would rotate in over 3 months. This was this project. Turned out that the national representative for that state lived in that neighborhood and found out about the project and killed it. So there was a bunch of work that went nowhere. So acceptance is a big thing. That would be a problem getting these homes back up. And then there are people that thrive out in the community rather than being locked up. The big question is who pays for it? It's very expensive insurance-wise. So I don't know if that'd be an answer, just to segregate all these people out. And then who makes the decision who goes in, who stays, who's sick enough to be there? And these are all really tough questions. Generating more questions. Next question.
Transgenderism, quite a bit.
Pardon?
Transgenderism, or whatever you call it, is quite in the news a lot.
Yes.
And there's been articles say there could be a relationship with transgender ideas, so forth, and mental disorders. Any comment about that?
Well, personally, I know some transgender people, and I know gay people, and some feel that's some type of disorder. But it doesn't, to me, that doesn't matter. They're still people. But I know that certain rates of mental illness, depression, anxiety disorder, PTSD is higher with transgender people. But that is such a small percentage of our society compared to the millions that have mental illness. It would be hard to say that plays a significant role.
Oliver, so does John mental health first aid courses? Do y'all offer that course at all, or?
We have a couple people that have taken that course and can give that course, but no, we have not given it. But it's an excellent course.
They like it? Was it useful?
Yeah, it is useful. It deals with things like how to confront a person, how to de-escalate a person, when to know when to call 911, how to keep everybody in the situation safe. I've never taken a course personally.
Yeah, we had it offered at my place, but I've never taken it.
Right.
I'm involved with two organizations that serve the homeless, Church Under the Bridge, and also TPAC, which is Tyler Family Assistance Service Center. And we provide services to both of those. Would you have volunteers that could join us and come in and counsel with some of the people with mental problems that come to those two events?
Not particularly, because we're not therapists, we're not professionals, we don't offer counseling, and what we have is more geared to the family member. So if somebody has a homeless child that is struggling with how to handle it, how to cope with the guilt, what's their next step? Maybe they need to accept it. Some homeless people like being homeless. Some people are there not by their own volition. They just are. So no, we don't have anybody that works with that. But what you do is great. And you and the Tyler Street team do wonderful things for these people. Questions? The woman in the back.
Mike, I have two questions. One is, when you're aware that someone is struggling with suicide, firstly, how do you get them to talk to you when they are really intending to? And secondly, how do you respond if they're going to commit suicide and I'm going to tell you? The reason I ask this, well, two reasons. Firstly, my son, when he was serving in Kabul, had a mate who was in difficulties, and he didn't realize how bad it was until he got a text message saying, "I'm bleeding, can you help me?" They got him. The second reason is close to home. My best friend of many decades, after a tragic life, has been on or off suicidal for some years, and we had an agreement. She would tell me. And when she was really serious, she did it. I was here in America, she's in Australia. How could I have done that better, and how could my son have spotted what's going on, really?
Opening up a conversation is very hard, but the main questions are, do you have a means, do you have a time frame, and do you have the way? So there was a thought a long time ago that if you ask somebody if they're suicidal, it's like, oh, you put the idea in their head and they're going to do it. No, the idea was already there. I've been there. I've been so low that I thought, there's no way to deal with this. It's just best to, stop it all. And fortunately, I realized that I was having a downtime and got with my doctor and fixed things. But anyway, back to what you were saying. Ask them. How are you feeling? Are you contemplating suicide? Do you have a way that you're going to do it? Have you thought about how you're going to do it? You have a time frame. And do you have the means? If somebody says, well, I've got a gun and I'm done and tomorrow's my last day, call 988 or 911. You need to get somebody professionally to interview. But just being open to this and not shying away from it. So when this says, this, I've got a few in the back, and if I don't have enough, you can take a picture of it. It's called How to Help a Friend, Know 10 Common Warning Signs of Somebody Who's in Distress. Now, the person's got to be honest, but you've got to make the first step. There was another question back there. And in the end, I read a great book by a psychiatrist dealing with this, and he had a client that was going to commit suicide, so he was being also, going to be a savior. And he goes, well, I'll just stay with this person all weekend, take him out of town with me and protect him so he won't do anything to himself. Well, in the course of this road trip, the guy said he had to get out and go to the restroom, and the guy pulled over and he jumped over the cliff. So, and if they're going to do it, we got to get it way before that. There was another question? Suicide's a tough topic, yes.
Sorry, I still before I ask my question, but what is playing the biggest factor, or do you think is the biggest factor of the upward turn of mental illness in people in the country or in the world? What do you think is the biggest driving factor of that?
Well, if you want to get me riled up, I think this is all personal opinion. COVID was very much a factor in that, with the isolation worldwide, just shutting down everybody's lives and having to cope with yourself. Because a lot of people ignore problems and they stay busy. That's actually a sign of bipolar and depression, that you just go, so you don't have to accept your situation. Social media probably plays a role in that. Television commercials play a role in that. I believe our body chemistry and all the additives and a lot of things that are in our food plays a role in that. And I think just recognition. I grew up in an era where, like you did, that there was always somebody in your class that was a little different, but it was okay. You let them climb trees, you let them do all these things, and now society wants to put all these square pegs in round holes. And it puts a lot of pressure on an individual. We have a lot of pressure to succeed. I don't know if it's a fact or not, but mental illness is higher in industrialized nations because of the stress, and maybe because of access.
It's better diagnosed too.
Better diagnosed.
They didn't know what Lewy bodies was 25, 30 years ago.
No. I can't put my finger on one thing. It's not an easy answer. One of our national doctors said mental illness is a combination of genetics, a combination of chance, a combination of neurogeneration. There's thought that it's viruses. There's thought that it's some type of chemical encounter that the fetus goes through when it's in the mother. They've done studies on identical twins where one would have schizophrenia and the other didn't, even though they were raised in the same home under the same situation. Two brothers go off to war. One gets PTSD and one doesn't. There's just a lot we don't understand. And hopefully through NAMI, with their research, will help.
Do you have any relationship with Breckenridge Village?
No, we do not, but I'm aware of it, and it's an excellent facility for individuals. That, from my understanding, is a lot of developmental disorders, Down syndrome,
Asperger's as well.
Asperger's, developmental, what they call pervasive delayed developmental disorders. There's a whole spectrum of that. Somebody who's slow but not Forrest Gump, type thing. But I did not know the process of that. And again, I think there's a waiting list for Breckenridge.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing
Only so much for questions or to talk about our programs. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, before you go, we did make a donation to PAVE in your name for being our speaker today. Thank you. Thank you.
I was in the Rotary 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago, so maybe I'll be back.
We are the Rotary Club.
And now we'll go on to the Ace of Diamonds. How it works is if you are a club member, you get half, the club gets half. If you are a guest, you get 25%, the person that brought you gets 25%, and the club gets half. How much is in there today?
$1,125, you got 40 cards.
40 cards and $1,125. And you have to pick the Ace of Diamonds.
You get to. We had quite a, very colorful today. I think it's,
Well, we read the white tickets, and so I had
It's
the
blue, so everybody has a blue ticket.
Yeah, that's a-
white ticket.
So I read the number?
yeah, the last 3 or 4 numbers.
Okay, well, it starts with 394300.
43.
You were.
Yeah, I used to one anime.
She said, what she said.
Sounds once later. And now, if we'll all stand for the pulmonary test of the things you think, say, and do. First.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
We are adjourned.